So I don't know if you guys remember, but a few weeks ago we released an episode all about how to plan out your month, and something I mentioned in that episode was that every month I try to pick a topic to really dive into and to learn more about. So for example, sometimes that will be investments. So where should we financially be investing our money? Sometimes that will be like how to live a more toxic free home. So what cleaners I should be using. It really varies, okay? And this month I have been so deeply invested in the idea of cycle syncing and what this looks like, how to do it, how to understand, how to adjust your daily routines, just everything that has to do with it. And I have talked to my personal OB, and she's a holistic doctor. So I went straight to the source, to a doctor, talked to a nurse practitioner, and then I've been doing a ton of research all over, literally apps, all sorts of different websites, just everything I can try to get my hands on to understand this idea a little bit better. And I am so excited for this episode because this is going to be so tangible. We are literally breaking things down so that way you can understand it better, and then you can learn more about it, and then ultimately you can make adjustments that are needed. So without further ado, let's jump in. We have a nice glass of ice water. Actually, it's not a glass, it's my Stanley. And I'm very excited because I am getting a Stanley dupe. My friend went to the store and found them and she was like, they're $10. I'm grabbing you one. And I was like, okay, great. I am so excited about this. So I'm very excited to switch the cup. Right now we just have the cream Stanley, but the one she's bringing is a little bit more of a tan color. And I'm so excited. So anyways, that's all we're drinking today. Nothing fancy. And then just kind of updates. I am in my hosting era. Okay. My husband and I started weekly Bible studies. So we have 10 to 12 people that come over each week now, and they come and we just dive into the Bible, and we're just a little community right now. It's such a sweet time. But more than that, I have just really embraced the hosting side of things. I got these cute little hosting dishes, and I make snacks beforehand, and it's just been fun. I've just been living my best life doing this, and it's been great. So that's pretty much all I got for you guys for a life update, because that's just where we're at. But really my life update comes down to what we're talking about today, which is cycle syncing. And this has been my obsession. I'm not even kidding. My brother called me the other day and I was like, dude, is it weird if I tell you about what I'm learning? He's like, I guess not. I was like, great, let me break it down for you. Okay. And that's how you know it's a real obsession. So first of all, I want to give you guys a very, very basic rundown of what we're talking about, because this was so new to me and honestly so overwhelming. When you first start trying to figure out how in the world to sync your routines, not just your workouts, not just your food, but your routine to whatever your cycle is, it's really hard and it's really overwhelming. So I want to talk about that. I also want to talk about how to find your cycle, because to me that was the hardest part of how do I know where I'm at in my cycle, especially because I do not get a period. I don't. I haven't since I think I was 12 or 13. And I also started my period when I was 11. So we're just going to be super candid in this conversation. I'm not going to hold anything back from you guys. We're going to talk about all of the things. But that's how I appreciate conversations around these things. Okay. We're not going to be hiding or trying to be super sensitive on these topics. We're just diving in. Okay. And again, I did talk to a lot of health professionals this week, or actually this month. Pretty much all of September, I have just been diving into this topic. So I feel very confident in what we're about to talk about, okay? So first of all, your cycle. This is what a woman's body goes through every single, pretty much 28 days. It can vary a little bit depending on how long your cycles are, which we'll get into more. And there are 4 phases that complete one cycle for you. Okay, 4 phases, and each one, your body needs different things, and it's also producing different things. It's going through a different season almost. And it's just so fascinating because I have, in my research, found that pretty much all nutrition and all exercise and all advice, medically mostly, is given on the cycle of a man's body, which there isn't one, right? They just go through each day. Daily they have these things, but every single, we'll call it a month, their whole body is not changing multiple times within that. And so as I was diving into this, and it's really cool, I love that medical researchers and doctors are really starting to lean towards this holistic thing, or at least more publicly. I'm sure they've always been there, but for me, I've really started seeking them out. And so, like I said, I have a holistic doctor who is incredible and is helping me through just all of these different things that I've been facing personally in my medical history, which we're not going to get super into, just for like my own sanity of being able to continue working through this without a lot of opinions coming at me. But anyways, it's just fascinating that we're finally starting to publicly see a lot of these things that we should always have been doing for our bodies. Okay. So back to the rundown. 4 phases. Okay. I will list them off. Phase 1 is menstrual. Phase 2 is follicular. Phase 3 is ovulation. And phase 4 is luteal. I'm probably saying those maybe a little weird. Maybe my pronunciation is not perfect. But it is the basics of it. And those are the 4 phases that you go through. Okay. And this is just fascinating. So we're going to dive in right now, okay? So we're going to start with phase 1, menstrual phase, okay? This is going to last you 3 to 7 days. It depends. And this is typically when you see bleeding. Again, I do not bleed. I don't get a period. But this is when you're going to get your period. This is when those symptoms are going to come. And it's just usually 3 to 7 days. And this is why I say about a month. It's not like rocket science where you're like every 30 days exactly for every single woman's body. No. It's your body. So you just have to kind of gauge this, okay? So let's talk about what this phase looks like, okay? So for every single phase, I'm going to talk about what you should be doing to nourish your body, what you should be doing to move your body, what you should be doing kind of as like an emotional, like where you're at emotionally usually, and what that can look like for you, okay? So with this one, you're bleeding. Obviously, this is a time of rest, okay? So for your movements, what you should be doing to move your body is walking is really good here and stretching. Those are 2 ways that I personally have found, and over the last month as I've been trying this out, it just feels good. It feels good to pull out your yoga mat. I don't even do a yoga class or any sort of like routine stretching, and I just stretch. And it just feels amazing. And then if I have the energy, I will go on a walk. And usually I try to keep my walks around 2 miles, just because I feel like that's a good movement thing. It takes me usually like 30 minutes-ish. I'm kind of a slow walker. Actually, take that back. Tank, my dog, is a slow walker. So we go at that pace. But it just feels good to like move your body in a way that doesn't have a lot of impact. It doesn't really like drain my muscles because my body is literally getting rid of an entire lining. So when you're in this period, pun intended. Anyways, your body is getting rid of all of the things that it put together to have a baby. It went, oh, there's no baby. So let's flush out all of the lining of the uterus. Let's flush out the egg. Let's get all of this stuff out of here because the baby's not here. So during this time for your emotional needs, I think that this is a really good time to just reflect, okay? So again, we're moving our bodies a little slower. We're really just stretching and trying to, get some of the lactic acid out of our muscles. Our body is literally working its butt off to get all of this stuff purged. And so I'm really reflective during this time. And I find that this will most likely be the case for you, speaking to a lot of professionals about this, is you're just going to really take this time to be in your thoughts, to, maybe do a little extra journaling and just reflect and rest. Okay. And that is just, it's just a calm time, just really, really calm, nothing crazy. What you should be eating while you're going through your menstrual phase. Okay. Iron is huge. Anti-inflammatory foods and antioxidants. Those are things that you really want to hit, as well as vitamin C, okay? So instead of just saying iron, anti-inflammatory foods, antioxidants, and vitamin C, what does that mean? Okay, so during this time, I'm going to say something. I do not enjoy meat, like ever. But what I am finding is that does not mean that my body doesn't need it, okay? So red meat, while I'm going through my menstrual cycle, it just leaves me feeling more nourished, more satisfied, and truthfully stronger. So during this time, I will eat red meat with Matt. I usually don't. But if he's making a burger, I'm not like, don't get me wrong, I'm not sitting down with like a steak here, okay? But I will put maybe real beef in a taco or a taco salad, or I will do, like I said, a burger with Matt. I'm just trying to find ways to maybe get a little bit more of beef in my body. And I'm very, very, very picky about the beef that we eat. And so is Matt, luckily. This is one of the things that we see very much so eye to eye. We do organic, all natural, grass fed. Nope, nothing crazy is in their diet. Beef from like local Texas farms. Okay. So we're very picky about where our meat comes from across the board. So this also helps because I don't feel like it's like a super fatty, gross, just full of gross foods and fertilizers beef. It's just natural, okay? What else can this include? I'm big on citrus during this time too. So even if it's just putting lemon in my water, like it does not need to be super complicated, but adding that extra lemon in my water will give me more antioxidants. And it just helps me have a clearer head. It just makes a little bit of the PMS symptoms feel a little lighter, the cramping that I sometimes get from this. It's just better when you're putting some citrus in your food, even if it's like a glass of orange juice in the morning. And I dilute my orange juice almost always with some extra water because it's like too much for me otherwise, but that helps, okay? And lastly, kale is really, really good here because it's anti-inflammatory, has antioxidants in it, and has iron in it. So it kind of gets everything. And I hate kale by itself. The only time I can eat kale is if there's like a salad with goat cheese on it. I don't know why. That's the only time the flavor is okay to me. But usually I'll throw this in a smoothie then. Okay. So those are ways that you can really try to lean into your menstrual cycle. Now, in order to make this not the longest episode of your entire life, we have to move on, but there's more I could say. Okay. Phase 2, follicular. Again, probably saying that wrong, but it's okay. This will last 7 to 10 days. Okay. Now, this phase starts as soon as the bleeding stops, okay? So you go menstrual, and then as soon as bleeding stops, you've entered follicular, okay? And again, I'm being straight with you guys. This is where I'm at on my phase right now, okay? And this is about 7 to 10 days long. And what I find during this phase, and this is so fascinating to me, this is a little bit of a more energetic phase. You have a little bit more energy. You're coming off of the bleeding, you're coming off of the symptoms, and you're just maybe feeling a little bit more put together. And this is like straight from like real doctors. This is not me making it up. They say the best thing to do during this is to create and plan because you have this energy back, but it's not the full energy that we're going to see in a later cycle or a later phase. So what we're doing here is we're just planning, we're creating, and we're really leaning into like the adventure side of things. This is my favorite phase, I think, because I am such a planner naturally. And it is so fascinating for me to look back. And like before I realized I was on this phase, I sat down with a literal like journal 2 days ago, and I just like whipped out like a bunch of social media content strategy, a bunch of plans. Like I was like writing our meals down, and I was like, I'm just loving like feeling put together and creating plans. And sure enough, I tracked it, which I'll talk about at the end of this episode of how I track. And I was like, oh, it's in my follicular phase. I was like, oh, duh. That's because I've just been feeling more creative and really leaning into these plans, okay? So what do we do for a movement during this? Cycling is really, really good right now. It's really hot outside, still in Texas. We're talking like mid to upper 90s. So I'm not biking a ton, but cycling is a good option right here because it's still not super high impact, but you are moving your body at a little bit of a higher rate than you were. I also love to do things like tennis during this phase because again, I'm feeling a little more energetic and it gets me outside in the sun. I get to hang out with Matt because I'm feeling a little more social. Like it's just a better feeling. And then I also enjoy strength training during these days. So I love to sit down and just like lift heavy things. And not super high impact, but I'm moving my body and I'm just starting to kind of regain a little bit more of the control that I feel like I just lost. Okay. So that's your follicular phase, however you want to say it, whatever. And then next we're going to jump into ovulation phase. Okay. So this will last 3 to 4 days. So all of my people who do not want to get pregnant, this is where you gotta be careful. And all my people who do want to get pregnant, this is where you really gotta lean in, okay? So it's fascinating to me. The ovulation phase obviously means this is when we're fertile. So me not understanding my body, I probably wouldn't have known that ovulation comes a good 2 weeks before you bleed. I would have thought that it was like a few days before you bleed, okay? Like the egg drops from your ovaries and it's ready to be fertilized. It either is or isn't. And then if it isn't, you get your period. If it is, you get pregnant. But it's a longer time frame in there, okay? And this was fascinating to me. So ovulation, again, you have like 3 to 4 days where you're fertile, and this is the egg is released, and you're just kind of, okay, how am I going to describe this mood? You're fun and you're social. If you're sexually active, this is going to be your highest libido time, okay? This is going to be the time where you're feeling a little more frisky than usual, all right? And this is, so again, I struggle with this phase. I don't have an egg that drops right now. So I don't experience a lot of those like emotional triggers right there, but for a lot of people you will. And so this is just so fascinating to me. Oh my gosh, okay. I have to go back. I did not tell you what you guys should be eating in the follicular phase. All right, pause the ovulation phase. For the follicular phase, which is again 7 to 10 days, you should be eating omega-3s and fibers, okay? They're estrogen regulating foods. And so this a great meal for this would be salmon with broccoli. Those are 2 foods that are really just going to help you feel your best, really help you lean into what you're going through with all that creation and that planning. And so I love a good salmon meal. I'm not a big broccoli fan, but we're going to work on it because that's a great food for that phase. Okay, jumping back into ovulation. I am so sorry, I forgot about that. When we're going through this, what the best types of movements are going to be a little bit more of that heavy lifting. Like strength training is good because you can use like dumbbells, or you're using bands, or, you know, even just like your own body weight. But we are going to really lean into heavy lifting during this time. Because again, you're feeling social, you're feeling energetic, and you have a lot going on. Your body naturally is telling you it's time to get pregnant, right? It's time to do the things. And so when you exert that energy out, it really does help your body just feel a little bit more of that release of not so much energy pent up, and your hormones will be able to continue to regulate itself, all of that. So what you should be eating during your ovulation phase is going to be fiber-rich foods, vitamin D, and zinc. Those are great sources of nutrients right here. So a couple of foods that you can eat during this time would be eggs. Eggs are really great during this time. We're back to meat, but it doesn't necessarily have to be red meat, you know. Chicken is really good. I do a lot of turkey during this time, like ground turkey instead of beef. And so those are kind of the meats that I stick with. I also will try to add ginger into my smoothies at this time because ginger is a great source of some of these nutrients. And I hate the flavor. I hate the flavor of ginger, but it is a really good way to nourish your body here. And then same with mushrooms. I will add mushrooms to my pizza. I will add mushrooms to my pasta. Whatever I'm eating, if I can, I'll add a mushroom or 2, depending on the size of it, just because that is another good source of nutrients here, okay? Now, phase 4 is the luteal phase. This is the one I'm least confident in my pronunciation, okay? Now, this is your longest phase. This is 10 to 14 days. And this is where you're going to kind of rest, like your average phase is going to like be here because it's the longest. So you're naturally going to be here a little bit more routine, which is really good because during this time you're fairly focused, okay? You're not as energetic as you are during the follicular and the ovulation phase, okay? So you're not necessarily wanting to like run around. Your libido is maybe not as high as it just was. You're not dealing with like this need to like plan everything out and you're feeling super creative. You're just focused. You're dialed in during this phase. And this is fascinating to me because so this is right before your next period starts again. This is kind of just like average life. So this is where you can get really routinized. I don't know if that's a word. You can just lean into your routine, okay? And you're slowing down a little bit, but not in a way that's negative. Your body's prepping for the next period. It's learning here. Okay, did we get pregnant? No. Or yes, in some cases. All right, well, we've got to build out the uterus lining and we've got to prep as if we are. So your body is waiting to basically get the results, are you pregnant or not, before it begins the next period. So I love this. This is the time to lean into what you're doing on a daily basis. This is the time to really just focus on getting the work done, really productive time, because you are so focused. So you can sit down. This is always when I am really, really productive at Project Rescue, which is my 9 to 5. I get the most done at Mini Social, which is my part-time job. I tend to not be as creative for content, but I spent so much time planning and creating during the follicular phase that I'm now ready to actually enact some of those plans. Okay. So I love to read a lot of educational books during this time. It's just a slower period. Okay. So for working out, I make sure that every day I'm walking during this period, because even if I'm not moving my body in a different way, I'm going to still, get some energy out. I'm just routined here. Okay. My favorite right now during this phase is at-home Pilates. I love at-home Pilates so much. It is so fun. I use the app Fit On, and the trainer I work with, her name's Casey, or Cassie maybe. She's super, super great. And I just will pull up my yoga mat. My muscles are always sore the next day, and you just do body weight Pilates at home. It's not too crazy. This feels really, really good to do. And I will mix in strength training throughout my week as well. Because, you have 10 days to 2 weeks of this. So I will do about, 2 to 3 days of strength training, 2 to 3 days of Pilates, and then take about 2 rest days in between that. So it feels really good because you are in a routine and you're also getting to still move your body. You're building muscle, you're exerting energy, but maybe not at the same level. Okay. So for food here, I really focus on magnesium and vitamin B6. I take a vitamin B6 supplement, but I don't necessarily try to do more or less of the supplement. I just try to be careful of what I'm eating during this time. So I do sweet potatoes, carrots, and oats. These are great. So during this phase, I will try to prioritize an oatmeal breakfast, just because the oats have that magnesium in it most of the time. And I'll add a little peanut butter in there for some protein. Carrots are obviously a great way to get your vitamins. And then same with the sweet potatoes. I will do a sweet potato kale goat cheese salad with chicken on it. Sometimes apple. So good. Oh my gosh, it's literally incredible. So those are some of the foods that you can prioritize. And as you're reading about this, you know what I mean? You can literally go onto different apps, or I love Lemonade for this because they pay people to post on there. So I'm actually one of the people that they pay to post, but they go to really smart individuals. I'm not saying I'm smart, but they go to professionals in their field and they pay them to make posts about this. So professional therapists, you have people on there who are holistic doctors, OBGYNs, nurse practitioners, and they pay people to make posts like this. And you can be pretty confident in the information that you're getting most of the time. It's the same company that owns TikTok. And they're really pushing this Lemonade app. And like I said, I get paid to post on there, which is just such a blessing. But more than that, I actually use that app all the time to look into some of these things because you can vet the people that you're learning from. And it's just so incredible. So when I'm looking at this, I will go on Lemonade or Pinterest. Pinterest is another huge one, obviously. And I will look up magnesium rich recipes if I know I'm in my luteal phase, or maybe I'll just even look up luteal phase recipes or meal ideas. And you're going to get options that are just really nutrient dense, and it'll help you in that season. Or I shouldn't call it a season because seasons are so much longer, in that phase of your cycle. Okay. So again, just to run down, we have the menstrual cycle 3 to 7 days, which you're going to rest and reflect. You have the follicular cycle, which is 7 to 10 days. And you're really going to focus on planning and creating. Your ovulation phase, which usually lasts 3 to 4 days. And this is when you're going to be a little bit more fun and social and energetic. And then lastly, you have the luteal phase. And this is where you're going to be a little bit more focused and routine based. And that's going to be about 10 to 14 days. All right. So now we get into how to track. So if you have a regular period, this is going to be very, very easy for you because you're going to just track based on your period. Okay. So as soon as your period starts, you entered menstrual. As soon as it stops, you know that you have, as soon as it stops, you've entered the follicular phase. And then within 7 to 10 days, you're ovulating. And then the next thing you know, as soon as your ovulation's done, you give yourself 3 to 4 days, you've entered luteal. And the next thing you know, you've started again with your menstrual. So tracking with your period is just so much more like straightforward. Okay. And if you can do that, that's great. But for people who don't have regular periods, or for people who have no periods, which disgustingly, horribly, sadly is most of our women, because of the toxins in our world, because of the treatments that we've been given, and most importantly, because of every single doctor, as soon as you come in for literally anything, whether it's skin related or digestion related or whatever, they look at you and say, you need birth control. A lot of us fall into the irregular side of cycle tracking, which makes it very, very hard because that bleeding is how most people are able to tell where they're at. So what do we do when we don't bleed? Or we bleed so irregularly with spotting or just heavy flows, whatever that looks like, okay? I have started natural cycles, okay? And natural cycles is this like fertility thing. It's fascinating to me, okay? So you can use it to not get pregnant, to try to get pregnant, and it tells you what phase you're in. You can track your symptoms. You can track how your skin is doing, how your stress is doing, all these things from this app, okay? And I'm trying to remember. I think I paid $120 for the year. Okay. So compare that to like birth control prices, you know what I mean? And all that. We're very normal. It's not too crazy. $120 for the entire year. It's an app on my phone and they sent me a thermometer. Okay. So every single morning, as soon as my alarm goes off, I put the thermometer in my mouth under my tongue and I hold it there for 30 seconds and then I will get up out of bed and I will go, it automatically syncs to my phone. So I don't have to worry about that. And it'll put the temperature as soon as I wake up into my phone. And what this does is it's called your basal temperature. And I'll be straight with you. I don't get the science. I don't, but that's okay because I'm not a scientist. I'm just telling you the facts that I've got. Your basal temperature basically can tell where you're at on your cycle. Okay. So right now, like I said, I'm at my follicular phase and they're telling me that based on my temperature. And there's not really anything else that goes with it. I don't have any symptoms. I don't have anything crazy, so it's not like I'm like trying to see like, oh, did I get some acne on my chin from hormones? Oh, that means I'm in ovulation. Because that just felt so unreliable to me. But apparently your body temperature is like huge. And this has been recommended to me by so many people, but also doctors who say that this is just amazing. I also know that it can connect to an Oura ring if you have an Oura ring and it will track your temperature. That just, one, I don't have an Oura ring. Two, it felt a little more finicky to me just because, I don't know, a ring versus a thermometer, I don't know. I just didn't love it. So I went with the thermometer. They sent the thermometer for free, all of the things. And like I said, it will tell you. So it tells you straight up on the app. I'm going to pull it up really fast so I can like walk you guys through exactly because it's just so fascinating. So every single morning, it automatically syncs my temperature, which is so great. You can show predictions of upcoming different types of like what symptoms you could be expecting. And it will literally like you can click this learn button and it has guides and it'll tell you, okay, you're in your follicular phase. Here's what you're probably experiencing emotionally. Here's what you're probably experiencing physically. This is what's happening with your body. And it just walks you through this whole thing. It's so fascinating. And then also like, if you're watching on the video, I'm showing you directly on the app, but if you're not, it's okay. It has a calendar and it has red days, which means that you should not be having unprotected sex because you're close to your ovulation phase. And if you're trying to not get pregnant, don't do it. Or it'll say like, hey, you're in your luteal phase, you're good to go, have unprotected sex, like you're fine. And so that's why it works really well as a birth control also, if you're married or sexually active, whatever. So like, again, we're just being candid here. It's telling me that this day there's a little egg and it says this is when your ovulation phase starts. And then it'll tell me like right here, there's like little drops and it says this is when you should be bleeding. And it walks me through when I should be bleeding. And it's just fascinating to me. It also reminds me that I should be doing like self breast checks to make sure that there's no lumps or anything like that. I stay very on top of that when I can. And like I said, it really does help me track my skin, my stress levels, all of those sorts of things. And it's just helpful, guys. It really, really is. And I know that this is maybe a little bit more of like a niche / uncomfortable subject for a lot of us. I grew up in a very open home where you talked about all of these things. You talked about what your body was going through. You talked openly about experiences and just what was happening. And so this isn't something I'm afraid to talk about. This isn't something that I was like, ooh, I wonder if this is like proper or something. I just really hope that you're able to take this and, you have like a basic understanding now, and you yourself can go into this learning phase now. So now it's your turn to really start diving into where your body's at, how to track it, all of those things. Like I said, this app is amazing. It's called Natural Cycles. I use the thermometer. It's a subscription, yes, but it really does seem worth it to me. I've only been using it for a couple of weeks now, but seriously, it's just been fascinating to learn more about my body personally. And ultimately adjust your routines, whether that's nourishment, movement, or your productivity levels. The more you learn about where you're at in life and why you feel the way you feel, it's going to help you be able to better cater to your body. So when you're going through your menstrual phase, you're not expecting yourself to show up like you would when you're in your ovulation phase. You know what I mean? Like, there's just different expectations I have for myself, a deeper understanding. And I even feel that way for like Matt, my husband. Like, I get to share with him, I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm going through my menstrual phase. I just need to rest for the next 5 days. I just need to chill. And even though I'm not bleeding, he is able to lean in that and be like, absolutely. And he is able to understand that. But then when I get on my follicular phase and I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to go do something. I want to plan something. Let's go play tennis. He's able to kind of adjust to that and be a little bit more understanding because he knows where my body's at. So I think for your partner, this can be really, really beneficial for relationships as well. So overall, I just have been loving learning more. There's still so much we could have talked about in this episode, so many more tips that there are. And again, I've only been diving into this for the past month or so, 6 weeks, maybe, or not 6 weeks. No, 6 weeks. And it's just been fascinating. So I really hope that this has been helpful to you guys. I hope this is something that you're looking at this and going, wow, I can really apply this to my life and start to make the changes that are needed, because this is a fun time. So anyways, I just am so excited. I'm so glad that we get to share this. I'm so glad that whenever we get excited about a specific topic or there's something new to learn, we get to share that together. And I just could not be more grateful for you all. So I love you like crazy, and happy cycle syncing.